Sri Bharat, please.
Thank you, sir. This is my first speech in the Parliament. I've heard many learned members speak today, and I'm not as prepared for countering many of the things that were said, but I think as we speak in the future, I'll learn from it. But I think the takeaway is that politics are different, times change, and when we point fingers at someone, there's four fingers pointing back at us. And I think I'll speak about those as we proceed into the future. I'd like to start off by thanking the Honorable Prime Minister and the Finance Minister for their visionary budget, which exemplifies the government's unwavering commitment to Viksit Bharat and the goal of making India a $30 trillion economy by 2047 and also making it the third largest economy by 2027. There were things that were said by members of the opposition. I'd like to highlight some of them. That the government today is not a stable government. I'd like to remind everyone that when UPA 2 came into power in 2009, the UPA didn't get the magic numbers. They were under 273, and they had to take external support of other parties to form the government. Compared to the times then and parties over here that were part of that alliance, we are much stronger now than they were then. I'd like to also highlight that what we're doing now is the alliance is based on pre-election agreement between the political parties, and we've all come together based on the needs of our respective states. And I'll come back to why Andhra Pradesh needs help and what the challenges we've faced over the last 5 years. But I'd like to highlight certain aspects of the budget, I think, which will help us become Viksit Bharat by 2047. I'd like to start off with the focus on infrastructure, on capital expenditure. The 11.11 crores that have been committed to capital expenditure is about 12% greater than what was committed last year. And I'd also like to appreciate the 1.5 lakh crores that have been given interest-free for multiple states across the country to leverage to build their own infrastructure. I'd like to also acknowledge the budget given for rural Bharat through the allocation of 2.66 lakh crores. I'd like to, in particular, appreciate the government for recognizing the challenges of the MSME sector by basically providing end-to-end support from the new credit assessment for giving about 100 crores of loan without collateral, from giving support to stressed MSMEs during their times of difficulty, to giving them access to funds. I think the MSMEs are the backbone of the country because across rural and urban areas, there's millions of MSMEs across the country that need that help. But through this development, we are not leaving people behind because there are allegations of price rise and inflation. I'd like to remind here that the average inflation in the NDA government over the last 10 years has been about 5% as per the World Economic Outlook. But during the UPA regime of 4 to 14, the inflation was 7.5%. So there's a 2.5% average lower number of inflation in the last 10 years compared to the UPA regime from 4 to 14. So whatever complaints that the opposition has about price rise, I think they're pointing a lot more fingers at themselves. I think the commitment of the government to give budget support to 1 crore families for building housing, both in urban and rural areas, is much appreciated, and we look forward to getting that benefit in Andhra Pradesh also. I think the continued welfare support through the Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Anna Yojana to 80 crore people and continuing that for 5 more years, we appreciate that. And I'd like to specifically mention the water management, sewage and solid waste treatment plan in about 100 cities. And I hope that the city of Visakhapatnam that I represent is covered in that. Having toured the entire parliament during the campaign and also having contested in 2019, this is an acute shortage and acute challenge that we face in our city with sewage and solid waste treatment issues. I'd like to also highlight the solar plan of providing about 1 crore houses with solar rooftops and about 300 units of electricity free. So I think through this, the government is providing development and providing support to not only the wealthy, but also to the poor and to people all around the country. And I hope that as the country keeps moving forward, we support many others. We've given a basic standard of living through these various initiatives. We've focused on infrastructure. We've focused on economic growth. But then the question is about equity. How are we giving opportunity to different people around the country? There are different things that the budget has spoken about. One, which was very interesting, was about being able to provide internship opportunities to 1 crore youth across the country to start with in the 500 top companies, but I hope that it gets spread to other companies. And the budget outlay in terms of giving a one-time joining of 6,000 rupees and a monthly benefit about 5,000 rupees. I'd like to appreciate the intention to set up 1,000 ITIs in the hub and spoke model across the country and to train 20 lakh youth in skilling. I think it's a much needed initiative. Being a person who's in higher education myself, I'd like to in particular appreciate the intention to give loan support of about 10 lakh rupees to every student who wants to pursue higher education in domestic institutions, and also giving 3% subvention on interest. Because I did my undergrad in the US, I lead a university in India today with about 30,000 students. I've seen over the last 2 decades that increasingly the number of assets that one holds is going down. Most people have to take debt to educate their children. And today, I don't want India to go into a place where the United States is right now, which is rising debt trap in the student community. And I think if you see the major expenditure that any household incurs is on education and on healthcare. So this important scheme coming in the higher education is much appreciated. And I also would like to briefly mention some initiatives in the Atmanirbhar Bharat intentionality, which is about making ourselves self-sufficient on the semiconductors and the entire technology sector because of the challenges we've seen in the pandemic and in general in the global uncertainty. I think all of the production link incentives we've given in the technology, IT, automobiles are all very necessary to also provide opportunities for Indian citizens for pursuing manufacturing in India. As we do all this, I think there's two potentially disruptive forces that we have to watch out for. And I'm happy to see that certain initiatives in those areas have been announced. The first disruptive force that could really change the way we live is climate change, sustainability. Because while we may be ignorant to the incremental damage to the environment, we're all seeing the way cyclones and hurricanes and storms and earthquakes are happening around the world. So investments into that areas like bringing clean energy, doubling the budget from 10,000 crores to close to 20,000 crores on new and renewable energy, almost increasing the nuclear power investments by 400% from about 500 to 2,000 crores, and increasing the solar grid capacity and looking at the overall renewable energy capacity. In 2014, we were 76 gigawatts. Now we have come to close to 200 gigawatts. So the government is delivering on its stated intention, and I think it will keep doing so over the next 5 years. I'd like to also specifically mention, while it's a small investment into the space, the VC fund that has been set up for 1,000 crores, I think is very important because as we exhaust our natural resources and as we look at beyond the Earth, I think investing into space startups and potentially living on other planets down the line will not be an impossibility, and it will be a possibility. And I'm glad that India is joining that. So having seen this, I'd like to also highlight the second potentially disruptive and also potentially very dangerous thing if we don't manage it well is artificial intelligence. The government of India approved the India AI mission in March 2024 with a budget outlay of about 10,000 crores over the next 5 years. I'd like to request that we put specific focus and research on the impact on the labor markets through the advancement of AI, the regulations we need to put in place to ensure that AI doesn't overtake the way our labor market functions, and also to invest into research on how we skill our workforce to deal with AI in the future. As far as the state of Andhra Pradesh is concerned that I represent in the Parliament of Visakhapatnam, I'd like to specifically appreciate the Honorable Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman ji and our Prime Minister Modi ji for the support of 15,000 crores that's been announced for Amravati in the current financial year, and the commitment to allocate more in the coming years, because Amravati is a project that's very historic and unique. We've received about 33,000 acres from over 30,000 farmers without taking a single rupee upfront, with the trust that we will develop and give back a world-class capital. But due to the damage of the last 5 years and the previous government, we've lost that ability to do it. So we need the support of the center, and we appreciate the center's response to that. Also, we'd like to appreciate the government's stance on Polavaram and saying that it's not just the lifeline for Andhra Pradesh, but a lifeline for the country because it can provide food security for the entire country. And really appreciate the government's commitment to financing and ensuring the early completion of Polavaram irrigation project in the state of Andhra Pradesh. As far as industrial development and infrastructure goes, there was mention of the Kopati node, the Oracle node in the Visakhapatnam-Chennai industrial corridor and the Hyderabad-Bangalore industrial corridor. We'd like to work closely with the central government in ensuring that these are a reality in the very near future. We'd like to appreciate the grants for the backward regions, Rayalaseema, Prakasam, and North Coastal Andhra, which I represent, getting the grants continuously over the next 5 years. And we look forward to overall getting all aspects of the AP Reorganization Act being implemented in letter and spirit. And we appreciate the Finance Minister for that support. I'd like to also specifically mention something that was mentioned in the beginning of the the budget speech and somewhere in the middle, which is about the seafood exports. Andhra Pradesh now exports close to 40% of the seafood in India out of the $8 billion industry. And there is significant challenges in terms of what the farmers face in terms of access to the shrimp broodstocks. So the two things that were mentioned was one, starting a breeding center for shrimp broodstocks in the country will really mitigate the production volatility and provide the livelihood stability for thousands of aqua farmers in our state, and also providing NABARD financing for not just the shrimp farmers, but for the processors and for the exporters. So we thank the government for that support. And I'd like to highlight here to all members of the House, why does Andhra need this support? The state was divided in 2014. I'd like to remind everybody in the House, the division, according to us, was done unscientifically. And for the first time in 2014, Andhra Pradesh had a deficit budget after 8 years of continuous positive budgets. And even the revenue distribution that was done was not done fairly, it was unequal. And these are multiple challenges. After the NDA government came to power in 2014 and our leader, Mr. Chandrababu Naidu, was the Chief Minister, we systematically worked on developing the economy. We competed with Telangana in the development of our per capita income. And on multiple metrics, we were doing well. Our agriculture grew, our economy grew at a country. But in 19, when we lost the elections, the damage that has been done to the state in the last 5 years, to some eyes, it feels that we've gone back by 15, 20 years. For a state that historically has received only about 40, 45 paisa for every rupee it gives to the center, we're in a very unique position today where we need to depend on the center to be able to run our state. And that's the particular reason why we even went to elections together with the BJP, with the Jan Sena, with Modi ji and with Pawan Kalyan ji for the good of the state. What are the challenges we faced? Amravati was not just not developed, it was systematically tried to be killed and destroyed. We've seen the farmers in Andhra Pradesh protest for over 1,200 days, close to 1,500 days, protesting against the earlier dictatorial regime in Andhra Pradesh. The progress of Polavaram, well, it achieved about 72% by the end of 2019 government. In the last 5 years, I'm very sad to say that it's only progressed about 3%. And under the claims of saving money or reverse tendering, they've damaged so many aspects of the Polavaram that now we have an international committee coming and checking it out and seeing what damage has been done and how we can repair it for the future. I'm also very sad that Andhra Pradesh, that was thriving, had the highest unemployment rate among graduate youth in India at about 24% in the year 2022-23. We seek to really reverse that. And overall, we still haven't released our white note on finances for the state. I think we will do that shortly, maybe today or tomorrow. But the state debt is estimated to have reached about 13 lakh crores in many forms. Debt on the state, debt through corporations, many of which we don't know, debt through liabilities that have to be paid, debt through incentives that have to be paid. When we club all of this together, it's about 13.5 lakh crores. When we left office in 2019, the state debt was about 3 lakh crores, 3.5 lakh crores. In a period of 5 years, we've seen the debt go up by 10 lakh crores, and that's really crippled us in our ability to invest into our own future. And the off-products of that are many other failures. One such thing I'd like to highlight is the failure in the way we've managed our power sector and leading to a loss of over 1.2 lakh crores in the power sector alone. I can keep going on and on, but I think the people of Andhra Pradesh have recognized these failures in governance. And when we came together, the BJP, Jan Sena and TDP, and we went to the people that we need to beat this dictatorial regime, they have given us a historical mandate of 164 seats out of 175 seats. We've won 21 seats in the NDA. I'd like to remind members of the opposition that we've gone together. It's not that BJP has 3 MPs in Andhra Pradesh, but the NDA has 21 MPs in Andhra Pradesh, and that is a very strong part of the government today. We'd like to continue to seek central support over the next few years because we'd like Andhra to come back onto its feet. As was said before, strong states make for strong countries, and competitive federalism is very good for all states to compete in a very positive manner. So we would like to continue to do that, but we seek that help in the short term so that Andhra can get back onto its feet. We're very confident that under visionary leadership of our leader Chandrababu Naidu ji, we had difficulties in 1995 when we came into power, when he became Chief Minister. We had difficulties in 2014 when we came to power, but we've never seen difficulties like this, what we have now in 2024. In fact, just yesterday, our Chief Minister speaking in the House, the Legislative Assembly, was saying that I can't even announce the budget of the state because that's how bad things are. I need 2 months' time to study how bad things are before I can even announce a budget for the state. So we're very sad as members of parliament representing our state to see a prospering state in this condition. But regardless, innovation is going on unabated. Similar to the skilling commitment of the central government, Andhra Pradesh has taken on this very innovative decision to do a skill census to measure the requirement of skills and the availability of skills in all districts of Andhra Pradesh and use that information as a basis for skill development, as a basis for employment, as a basis for investment into the state of Andhra Pradesh, and we will continue to do so. There are many other things that I'd like to speak, but I'll just end with a few things and coming back to a few things concerning my parliament, Visakhapatnam. The government has recently announced the intention to overhaul 200 state-run firms and shift the focus away from privatization and towards enhancing intrinsic value. I request the Honorable Finance Minister to include the Vizag Steel Plant among these state enterprises, and we will provide all our support from the state government to bring it back on its feet and really deliver on providing steel to the country. We'd like to continue to coordinate with the government on the speedy establishment of the South Coast Railway Zone. I look forward to whatever budgetary allocation that is required for that. And this gracious allocation, I would like to end my speech by saying that this gracious allocation for a state like Andhra Pradesh is very well received by the people of Andhra Pradesh, especially in the despair that we've been in the last 5 years. We'd like to acknowledge our Prime Minister, Narendra Modi ji, and our Finance Minister, Nirmala Sitharaman ji, for recognizing this need and respecting the judgment of the people of Andhra Pradesh. And I look forward to participating more in this August House in further debates. And I thank the Honorable Chairman for the time given to me to speak today. Thank you.